good news before us today. Let's look and hear this passage. In those days, Mary set out and went with haste to a Judean town in the hill country, where she entered the house of Zechariah and greeted Elizabeth. When Elizabeth heard Mary's greeting, the child leapt in her womb, and Elizabeth was filled with the Holy Spirit and exclaimed with a loud cry, "Blessed are you among women, and blessed is the fruit of your womb. And why has this happened to me, that the mother of my Lord comes to me? For as soon as I heard the sound of your greeting, the child in my womb leapt for joy. And blessed is she who believed that there would be a fulfillment of what was spoken to her by the Lord." And now for the words known as the Magnificat. Mary said, "My soul magnifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God my Savior, who has looked with favor on the lowliness of this servant. Surely from now on, all generations will call me blessed. For the Mighty One has done great things for me, and holy is God's name, whose mercy is for those who fear God from generation to generation. God has shown strength with a holy arm, has scattered the proud in the thoughts of their hearts, has brought down the powerful from their thrones, lifted up the lowly, has filled the hungry with good things, and sent the rich away empty." God has helped the servant Israel in remembrance of God's mercy, according to the promise made to our ancestors, to Abraham and his descendants forever. Hear what the Spirit is saying to us, the church. Would you pray with me? Gracious God, this story moves us in many different ways, not all of it edifying, but all of it important. Help us hear these words anew in the message before us and in the communion that follows. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. The year was 1804, and the invisible lady had taken the country by storm. According to Harvard historian Jill Lepore, the invisible lady was, in the days before P.T. Barnum's sideshows, she was perhaps the most popular attraction in these United States. The invisible lady, you see, lived in an empty glass coffin suspended from a ceiling. Through tubes extending from that coffin, she conversed with paid customers. She was a real woman, of course, hidden behind ceiling boards from the public's view and knowledge. The invisible lady opened at what was then the Shakespeare Theater in New York City. She remained there for a few months. Then she embarked on a countrywide tour. Now, decades later, a man named Thomas Wentworth Higginson, he wrote about the invisible lady in an essay. That is, he wrote about the metaphor he believed she represented. You see, Thomas Wentworth Higginson was a militant women's rights activist, perhaps better known as the editor of the poems of another invisible lady of sorts, Emily Dickinson. Higginson wrote in his essay how the invisible lady symbolized so well how women live in the minds of most men, that they are best off when least visible, when kept out of view, to protect their chastity, their delicate Victorian nature. All as a way, he wrote, to deny their roles in public life, including then the right to vote. To many men, doubtless, Higginson wrote in his essay, to many men, doubtless, the invisible lady would have been seen as the ideal of her sex, Could only her brain and tongue had disappeared like the rest of her faculties. Could only her brain and tongue had disappeared too. Well, not so with Mary in Luke's gospel today. Her Magnificat words so powerful. For Mary clears the decks. She levels the playing field, imagining a reversal of the world's fortunes, which she sees God setting in place already. Providing for Luke the literary bookend to the greatest historical reversal of all, one that we celebrate in our communion today. The reversal known as the power of resurrection. Mary's Magnificat is a revolutionary statement of justice. And that's what it is, a statement. And that's all that is. For then suddenly, Mary becomes the invisible lady. She disappears. Heard from no more, only heard about. Come Christmas Eve. And when she and Joseph are chasing down their adolescent Jesus in the temple. So Mary's Magnificat, great words, and then invisible. She's invisible. As Mary had been invisible in terms of initiative all along. Because for Luke, it was well enough that Mary stood around looking numinous. And over the centuries, musical compositions have advanced this holy image, her Magnificat aura, burnished in more musical scores than any other passage in the Bible. Mary's chastity is protected, her delicate nature preserved. She's a dutiful peasant girl, a public theologian has put it, who we learned last Sunday is overwhelmed by the presence of an angel and is meekly subservient to God. Now, this image of Mary is no narrative accident. The Women's Bible Commentary notes that every woman in Luke's gospel, Mary included, is a model of subordinate service, not considered a disciple, and excluded from significant responsibilities of any sort. Women whose passive presence renders them, while visible, in effect, invisible. Now, can we not, all of us today, women and men, relate? We who have become less visible to one another and to the world around us in these socially distant days. And can we not also relate that as invisible as we are to one another's proactive narrative, as Mary was to Luke's, can we also now relate to Mary's prophetic power that lingers among us still? For we continue to be a Magnificat-based church, as our weekly worship charge attests. For we still know in these less visible days that Mary is singing our song. And it's a powerful song, sung mostly by many Catholics and also many of us mainline Christians. Even as we mainliners have grown less visible in social discourse and impact all around us, thanks to forces too numerous to name. Pandemic regardless, we've grown less visible. But take heed, Mary here sings our song, the power of the prophetic word. In times of less visibility, we can still hear that prophetic word, a prophetic word ladled from the deep wells of the divine, the source of our conviction, the source of our joy. Magnificat, Magnificat, a prophetic word which can still be serviced by socially distant us, less visible than ever. Serviced, for example, through phone calls and letter writing, be they this Christmas to marginalized family members, prospective voters in Georgia, to the lonely, or to the just plain alone. It's a prophetic word serviced through food preparation for the hungry. A prophetic word, all ways that give birth, like Mary, to something infinitely greater that we may not see in our lives and to the lives of so many. For although Mary lurks in the shadows of Luke's male-centered narrative, how little has changed over the centuries, this cult of the invisible lady. Even though she may lurk in the shadows and she's not proactive and she disappears after today in voice, she can still serve today as a model for socially distant us. We can still speak her inconvenient truth of liberation to the enslaved powers all around us, the powers that are enslaved. We can still praise God for fostering these truths, and we can still participate in the regeneration of sacred life. For like our Zoom boxes at the end of today's worship service, Mary's image in Luke's gospel narrative would soon fade away, but her good news of reversal need never be muted. For even when we may walk about wearing our mask, even with our mask, there's a body language expert named Janine Driver, and she was recently asked, when the nose, mouth, and chin disappear behind a covering, can we recognize if a person is friendly? And if you smile, will the other person know it? And Janine Driver's answer was this: yes, it is still worth it to smile while wearing a mask, because, she adds, with true happiness, we see it with the wrinkles on the sides of our eyes. Particularly for those older folks like myself, we can see it with the wrinkles in the sides of our eyes. In this time of pandemic, we, like Mary, may seem invisible to God's narrative all around us. And yet the wrinkles of our eyes can still dance with her joy. And our song, like hers, need never be muted. So let us simply sit and stand present with Mary at these times of new birth. Let us continue to speak God's truth in a world that knows so little. Amen.